Okay, so today there's going to be there's a handout on classical sampling, and it's a two-pager, 1, 2. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go over the first one, kind of show you how to go through it, and then you can work on the second one and turn it in. So this is the basic classical sampling. It's in your email. It's also on Blackboard. And so let me go into kind of to explain a little bit about sampling in general. I know you guys probably know what it is about, but basically you take a small group and figure out that group as far as what's right, what's wrong, whatever, and you project it over the population as a whole. So you take a small group, and this isn't just for auditing, this is for anything. If you have a new medicine, you can't test it on all 8 billion people in the world, so you test it on a group, and then you say, okay, in this group, it worked this well, so it should work this well with the population as a whole. So yeah, that's the whole idea behind it. And we do it in auditing for a couple of reasons. First of all, is we need to get evidence when we're faced with a client that has a large number of sales, for instance. Well, we have to come up with some kind of evidence to see whether those sales are real sales, whether those numbers actually make sense. And one of the ways we do it is through sampling. We'll take a sample of the number of items. And if you're wondering why we don't take all of them, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it's much more efficient to take a sample. You can get very sure. You get the 99% level by taking oftentimes a small percentage of the total, and you can be very comfortable with that projection. It's also possible, depending on the company, that it would be impossible to do 100%. For instance, something like Walmart. To do a physical inventory of Walmart at year end would be impossible. There's not enough auditors in the world to do that. So, sometimes it's because it's impossible, kind of like testing the medicine on all 8 billion people. So anyway, we're going to take a sample of items, and then once we get that sample, we're going to then there's going to be 3 different ways we're going to project that over the total for classical sampling. So we're taking a small number of items, projecting it over the population as a whole to see whether the numbers that the client has make sense, whether we can back those up. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So here's the handout. And in this case, the client says that they have sales of $1 million, and the total number of sales were 25,000. Okay, now we take a sample. So here's our sample. We take 1,000 items, and we add up what we come up with. So this audit value, this is when we looked at the items, these 1,000 items, this is what we came up with for a total. Now the client, they gave us these items, the client came up with this amount for the total. Okay, so here's our sample. The total value of our sample is 37,800. And the total book value of that sample, what the client gave us, so this is from the auditors, and this is from the client. I'll put it in later. Okay, so what we want to do is find the average for each one. So all we're going to do is take this 37,000 and divide it by 100 items in the sample, 100 sales in this case. Scratch that, 1,000 sales in this case. I think that's 3780. So this is our average of our audit sample. And we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to get an average for our cursor set up there. We're going to get an average for this. And that just comes out to $42. So this will be our and this will be for the client. Those are what the client said. So this is the auditor's numbers, auditor's average, and this is the client's average. Okay, so a couple things about this. As an auditor, you are always, the better evidence is always that stuff that you got for yourself. It's always that stuff that you, whether it's calculations or observing, that sort of thing. Whatever you do for yourself is more persuasive. It's not somebody telling you it. The book value is someone telling us this is what these are worth. When we go out and audit it, we're getting to what we believe it's worth. So it's what numbers we come up with objectively that we actually go with. So the audit number in this case, the audit average, is the more persuasive of the two. It's what we came up with. We went and looked at it ourselves, and that's what we found out. Okay, so we get these averages, and now we're going to expand this to the entire population. Okay, so let's do the mean per unit first. Mean per unit, mean is just average. So we're going to take the average number. Now, if you think about it, we're more inclined to use our number because it's more accurate. So we're going to use our number. We said, look, we found out that these are worth 37.80. We're going to assume that all of these are worth 37.80. So what we're going to do is take the audit average times the number of items in the sample. The total, I should say the total number of items. Not in the sample, in the population. Oops. And that will equal our projected value. Okay, so let's see how this works. So the audit average is 37.80. And we're saying that every item in that total population, so the number of sales here was 25,000. So all 25,000 of these should be worth 37.60. And that will equal our projected value. Okay, so 37. I'm sorry, it's not 37, it's 37.80. Oopsie daisy. Let's try that again. So 37.80 times 25,000 equals 945,000. So this is our projected value. This is our best estimate as far as what these, this is the value of this, of their sales are. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to cut and paste this up here. Now we want to know how much this is misstated by, and for that we need the book value. Oops. Yeah, let's go down. Okay, so our book value is $1 million. So they're saying it's worth $1 million. We're saying it's worth 945. So the difference here, the misstatement is $55,000. So this is the misstatement. It is 55,000 for this method. And we are saying that their books are overstated. We're saying they should be worth 945,000. They're saying they're worth $1 million. So this is an overstatement of 55,000. So we took our average, our mean. This is the auditor's mean, the auditor's average, and multiplied it by every item in the population, saying every item should be this value, and this is what we came up with for the misstatement. Okay. Let's go on to ratio estimation. Okay, so ratio estimation says that things will be off by a ratio. Basically, large items will be off by larger amounts than smaller items. The amount of misstatement is relative to how big they are. So for instance, a $50 account probably wouldn't have a $1,000 error. I mean, if it's $50, having a $1,000 error would be kind of unusual. However, if it's a $50,000 account, being off by $1,000 probably isn't that unusual. So the errors are relative. It's a ratio of what the errors are to the population as a whole. So ratio estimation means that small items are off by small amounts, big items are off by big amounts. It's probably the most universal of the three methods. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a ratio of the audit value over the book value. So the audit average I'm just going to plug them in right here. 3780. And the book average is 42. Maybe I'll space it. Let's see. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to divide these. This will be the ratio. And we're going to take that and multiply it by the total book value. Which in this case is $1 million, right? Yeah, total book value is $1 million. I'm going to put that up here. And this will give us our projected value. So 3780 divided by, oops. So this equals 900,000. So this is our projected value. And again, we're saying everything's off by the same ratio. So we're saying our projected value would be 900,000. So this is what we think that the sales should be on the books for. And we're going to do the same thing we did here. And in this case, our projected misstatement will be 100,000. And this is also an overstatement. They're saying it's worth $1 million. We're saying it's worth 900,000. So for both of these, you'll notice that we're taking the same numbers. These are exactly the same numbers. You know, we came up from our sample, but we're projecting it over the entire population in different methods. So this will be one more method we're going to use, but taking your sample and projecting it. And so these three different kind of ways of doing it are three different ways of projecting it over the entire population. Okay, so let's take a look here. Difference estimation. Different estimation is a little bit different. Different estimation is that you take the difference. I'm just going to try to get a little more room down here. I wasn't terribly efficient here in my. So we take the difference between them. Okay, so we'll take our audit average. Uh, 3780. And we'll take our book average. We'll subtract out, I should say, our book average. And so we're going to come up with a number here. Now this is going to be what we think the adjustment should be for this. This would be the difference. So the difference between these two is $4.20. So here's what we're saying. They have to take $4.20 out of each item. So each item needs to be decreased in value by $4.20. And we're going to take that by the total number of items. So there's 25,000 sales. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is the actual projected misstatement. So this is the projected misstatement. This is not the projected value. This is how much it's off by. We're saying every single item in here in this 25,000 population is off by $4.20. So I'm going to multiply that out. $105,000. So we're saying that these are actually, the misstatement is, it's wrong place. Hold on. So we're saying that this whole thing is overstated. This is an overstatement. Of 105,000. Okay, so projected misstatement, it's an overstatement of 105,000. And so the projected value will be 895,000. And the calculations for that are the book value of 1 million minus the misstatement. Let's see if I can bold that. Okay, so this is that. So difference estimation, it would come out that the projected value is 895,000. We're projecting a misstatement, and that's over here, 105,000. So the projected value would be 895,000. So these are the three methods for classical sampling. And basically, they're all doing the same thing. They're all taking that population, that we have that 1,000 items, and we're projecting it over the 25,000 items. Take 1,000 items, projecting it over 25,000 items. And these are the three different ways they do it. There's different methods that are used for different things. Mean per unit's done when the average size is about the same. The average size of the items in the sample are about the same. So if they're all like around, $40-ish, it's a good one to use. Ratio estimation is probably the one that can be used on almost anything, because if it's a large item, if it's thousands of dollars, that's fine. If it's $3, that's fine. That those will be off by a ratio. Big items will be off by a big amount, small items off by small amounts. Difference estimation is the wackiest one, and probably the one that's the fewest naturally occurring, in accounting anyways, ones. And that's when it doesn't matter what size the item is, that it'll be misstated by the same amount. So for instance, if everything is off by $10, whether it's a $50 account or a $50,000 account, that they'll be off by, say, $10. That is a place we use difference estimation. I audited for about 3 years, and I don't think I ever used a difference estimation. I'm sure there's applications for it, but of those three, I think that's probably the least likely to be the one that would come into play. However, it's one of the items that and again, you're basically taking a small number of items, 1,000 items out of the 25,000, and projecting it over the population as a whole. And we're doing that because it's efficient, and we're doing that because we need evidence to know whether people can rely on these financial statements, and that's what we're doing. We're gathering evidence by doing this sampling. Okay, so I'm going to put this in Blackboard so you guys can go ahead and submit it. Do the second problem on your own. Follow the steps that we did in the first one, and see if you can do the second one on your own and turn it in. And don't worry about making mistakes. If you make a mistake, we can always take a look at it and see what happened. I'm more interested in you learning how to do the method than necessarily getting it right down to the penny or something like that. But don't be afraid that you're going to lose a bunch of points or something like that. It's not going to happen. So do your best with it. Do the second one, turn it in, and that'll be the first of the sampling items. Okay. Goodbye.